Hi, and welcome to InfoSec Pros. I'm Kane, I'm Field CISO at Hyperproof, and I'm joined today at RSA 2025 by Bill Dougherty, CISO at Omada Health. Great to see you, Bill.
It's good to be here.
So, we were talking before the show, and you'd previously released the No Dirt Threat Model in, what was that, 2019?
It was 2019, if you can remember back pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah. So rumor has it that you're working on a new model that has some improvements. Can you share any details about that?
Yeah, so the original threat model we put out in 2019, it was designed to blend security, privacy, and compliance concerns, and specifically in digital healthcare, although we thought it was extensible to pretty much any other business. Really built on the back of models like Stride and Wyndham, but trying to make it simplified and be able to use it in a quick and repetitive process internally. And we used it for vendor assessments. We used it for new projects. What we started working on about 6 months ago is trying to update that for AI and LLM systems.
Yeah, what's different about AI and LLM compared to previous elements?
Um, a lot of it is just language. So our AI teams, they have a different set of vocabulary, but also there's a lot of kind of standardized controls that we put in place that you have to rethink when you're talking about training and developing and then implementing an LLM solution. Because as an example, we know how to authenticate and authorize humans,
Right.
and because a human has a specific role or specific function. When you're dealing with an AI agent, that agent may end up having lots of roles or functions. And so you have to authorize them for the moment, for the session, rather than authorizing them for the agent as an entity.
All right, and now I've seen a draft of your model, and you actually mentioned the term excessive agency as being a potential security risk. Can you walk me and the audience through a real-world example of what that excessive agency would look like or could look like?
Yeah, so as an example, we're working on some new LLM features that'll be within our care delivery system, and we'll let one of our members ask questions. And when you do that, you want the agent to only return information that is relevant to that member and no other. But the agent may have access to lots of members' health information. And so in that situation, you need to model it such that the agent adopts the session token or the user credentials of the person it is chatting with, so that you guarantee that you don't give the wrong health information to the wrong person.
I can imagine that could be bad from a lot of reasons, both possibly regulatory in nature as well as just practical elements, right?
And it's a bad user experience.
Could see that, absolutely. Are there any other examples of things where this could go wrong, where excessive agency could cause problems?
Yeah, so you only want the agent to do the features and functions that you've authorized the agent to do. And you don't want it to exceed its boundaries. That's really no different than you're doing with a human, but because different apps or different functions may have lots of different capabilities, if I'm asking an agent information about my health, I don't want it to reset my password. And so you need to constrain it for the purpose that your session is on and for the person.
All right, fantastic. And are there any, in your draft model, I remember something about, I think you'd used the phrase overconsumption and denial of service attacks. How could the traditional security measures maybe not interact with those in an LLM or an AI perspective?
Well, usually when we think of service attacks, we're doing things like we're rate limiting requests. Okay, pretty common. Throw up a firewall.
Yeah.
We know how to do that. Overconsumption is similar to a denial of service attack, but it's really the back end, the AI processing, chewing up more resources than you intended. That could happen because of a prompt. That could happen because of excess agency. There's a lot of reasons that could happen, but you can imagine the AI features on the back end can get pretty expensive, especially if you're working in a cloud environment. And so you'd have to monitor for that just to make sure that you're not running out of control on your tasks.
All right, and something else the draft document had mentioned were red team datasets, red team agents. What are those about, and how are those going to be beneficial if you're on the blue team?
Yeah. So red team datasets is one of the places we started, which is you can imagine if you're training a model or training the system, you've got a lot of prompts that you would expect the user to input, like tell me what my weight is, okay? But then there's also lots of opportunities to try to do prompt injection. Well, if you want to protect against prompt injection, you have to put a bunch of controls in place, but then you need to test them. And so you need essentially a malicious set of prompts, a red team set, that you can run against it and then can mathematically score how effective your controls are at preventing. And that red team data set, some of it can be generalized to any feature we put out. Some crawling needs to be very specific to the feature.
All right, and is that something that's going to be available as part of your larger model, that data set?
Um, that isn't something that we're going to publish because it's going to be specific and internal to us, but there's a bunch of good red team data sets out there. Llama published one that's open source that's a pretty good starting place for a lot of testing.
All right. And something else that you'd mentioned, I remember there was a risk matrix, and it included the human elements, and you had something in there about care team workflows for detecting AI misuse. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when we're crafting this, just like all security, you're trying to craft layers of control. And so when we are trying to evaluate how good an agent is performing, one of the things you can do is you can have another LLM act as a judge and can say, okay, was that a good response? Well, you need to train that judge. And so we have humans that do that with subject matter experts that say, was that a good response, yes or no? And if it wasn't, we're going to go fine tune the prompt, we're going to fine tune the RAG until humans are saying that it is a good response and an LLM is saying it. And then you get to where the humans stop worrying about the primary system, and what they actually do is spend their time evaluating the judge, how good the LLM judge is at evaluating whether it's a good response or not.
All right. And you mentioned controls. The document that you showed me has numerous controls across administrative and technical domains. What are the ones that you find to be most overlooked in AI security models or AI security frameworks?
Because this is all new for everyone, I think that across the whole spectrum, for preventative controls, the detective controls, they're all somewhat being overlooked because people are putting features out faster than they're putting out controls. What surprised us as we got into this is how many things we actually need, like a detective control to happen after the fact to measure quality or measure bias checkers, things like that, where you actually need a large data set of results in the real world before you can know if you have a problem. And so like we put together a feature, we're testing for things like bias, we're testing for things like just is it a good answer? But then you also need to put it out in the real world and then run those same tests over and over again as a detective control and monitor that so that you can then adjust it on the collab. Because you will get drift.
Oh, I'm sure there's going to be drift in there. You're reminding me, though, of a white paper I saw about using attorneys, so using lawyers, to do red teaming of models, kind of as a human in the loop to fulfill that judge perspective. Have you given any perspective to how attorneys might be able to better judge the outputs, at least from a compliance perspective?
Yeah, so what we, in our model, we refer to it just as subject matter experts. And within our company, we have coaches and clinicians and medical specialists. We have compliance people, we have our privacy officer, we have our security people. So there's a lot of subject matter experts that are in this process of evaluating how good the output is. Because very important to us is that these things are safe and efficacious, but also don't trip some regulation, don't trip some contractual obligation.
And I can imagine just with the complexities of HIPAA, that's adding another layer of complexity and challenge for you to deal with from a regulatory perspective. Although I don't believe, other than, what was that, HIT or HIP 1, I remember was the reg that was proposed. There's not a lot else right now for AI regulation under HIPAA directly. It's all in related regulatory controls, right?
It's mostly related. Basically, with HIPAA, the fundamentals haven't changed. You still can only use the data for specific allowed purposes. It's just now, and we've had those for software. This is just a different type of software.
All right, so you're treating it very similar. You're adding the same. There are no new controls. They're all administrative, detective, etc. And any chance that this is going to be a public model? You're thinking of releasing this out, or?
Our hope is to publish it out to the world in the next 2 months. We published the first one. We just put it out to the community because there wasn't a good model for threat modeling in digital healthcare. So we put it out, no copyright, no license, no restrictions. Go make of it what you will. We're hoping to do the same thing here because there's so many of us that are struggling with the same set of problems, and just we would rather enhance the community so that we're all learning and doing better.
That's fantastic. And do you have a place where people will be able to come find a copy of that audit?
So it'll probably be on our main threat model website, includesnodirt.com. It'll be on my Twitter feed at bdognet. It'll be on LinkedIn, and then it'll get floated around the community.
Fantastic. And you said that was includesnodirt.com.
Correct.
Okay, cool. I'm going to see if we can also get that added to the show notes for people to be able to see that. And so what I'm hearing is maybe by Black Hat, we'll have a new AI LLM threat model and response model.
Hopefully before.
Oh.
I just need it's just fine tuning it at this point. It was originally written as an internal model, so there's a lot of stuff that is specific to our company that we actually needed to take out, like diagrams. We'll have internal system names. I need to genericize them, but you will get it out to the world soon.
Fantastic. Well, with that, Bill, I want to thank you for being on the show today. And if you're watching this and if you know somebody who should be on the show, or alternatively, if you're that person who should be on the show or at RSA 2025, DM me on LinkedIn. And I want to take a moment to thank our audience for joining us today. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. It's good to see you.